What's up guys, thank you for joining me. I'm your host Sam, and we're doing things a little bit differently today. This is still gonna be part of the SJ Cinematic series. I believe it's number 3, but afterwards I'm gonna pull it up in DaVinci and I'm gonna show you the hows, the whats, and the whys of my timeline. I was hired by the local barbershop to shoot a whole marketing campaign for them, so this is just the first video of that series. But without further ado, this is SJ Cinematics number 3, Royal Fades Barbershop. So here we are in our timeline, and I just wanted to get an establishing shot of the town and the building in the beginning. I also have their logo here. When they sent me the logo, it had a black background, but if you throw it into Photoshop and then just select the background and delete it, you will have a transparent logo as long as it's cut correctly. So yeah. And it just fades into another establishing shot of the building itself and the town that we're in. So I really like to start out with some sort of establishing shot so that you can see where we are, and it gives the viewer a very simple idea of what's going on. Some B-roll of the building, the times, the shop itself, and then we have the 4 barbers pop up. Now this is a frame, it's an overlay that I use. It's normally a lot of film overlays that I use, or light leaks, things of that nature. I also like really glitchy stuff or things that look like they came from a CRT monitor. It just has some sort of style that I really dig, so I normally work with film or CRT overlays. I also got them from Motion Array. I have a login to Motion Array, so if you don't and you produce videos a lot and you want to get into using overlays, Motion Array has a ridiculous amount of them, and it also has a lot of really good sound effects. So I also had them pop up like on the beat down here, and then at the bottom there's also a hair clipper that pops up at the very last second. I really dig that, and I just like to keep things edited to the beat of the song. The way I did this is it's 2 different shots. So I have a far shot on the 24mm, and then I have a closer shot on the 65mm, but they're taken from generally the same angle. And then the transition right here is what I believe to be video transitions. It's a pre-made one down at the bottom here. Zoom in. So that's the transition I used, and then I just changed some of the quality. I added some motion blur, so on and so forth. So that's what you get from that. So these fonts and this overlay are pretty important. The font up here is called Night, and then this one is called Kenyan Coffee. I wanted something really legible and easy to read. There's also 4 different text boxes here because I put a drop shadow on each of them. A little pro tip is if you want to duplicate the word for word kind of text box, you just hold down Alt and then drag it and you get a new one. I also wanted to add this film overlay just to make this shot look like it stands out from the rest of the video, just so that you really get a feel for what their hours of operation are. That. So if you make a whole video and it's all slow motion, there's no normal speed, there's no sped up parts, it gets kind of I don't know what the word is for it. It just gets kind of boring because you're expecting it all to be slow motion. So if you pepper in these shots that are a little bit faster, it just gives it some variance, and like it just gives you something to latch onto that makes it feel like it's not just all slow-mo. It's really easy to just fall into shooting in 60 frames per second at all times and then just putting it all at 40% and then never really doing anything else, which is fine, I guess, but sometimes you just kind of want to add something a little bit different, in my opinion anyway. So with this portion down here, I added some hair clippers, sound effects. They're very subtle and way in the background. I don't really like when sound design is real ham-fisted and in your face. I just think it looks kind of unprofessional to do it that way. So most of the time I take my sound effects and I either bring the volume back as far as possible or I EQ them so that they're barely hearable. Is that a word? Hearable? So that's an FPV shot. I don't know if I stabilized that or not. A lot of the times with FPV shots, you should stabilize them because they're just a little bit shaky by nature because the gimbal has less axes that it's working with. And obviously that is a speed ramping. So normally in DaVinci to speed ramp, I go to retime controls and retime curve, and you can see down here that I did a little bit of work with that. A pro tip for that, so that it's not just instantaneously slowing down, you click on these dots and you change it from this to this, and it has like a gradual ramping that it does. Some hot towels, some more slow motion, and some fading in and out. Another thing you should do if you change the retime curve is come down here and change your scaling, retime process, and all that stuff to optical flow. The best settings are optical flow, enhanced better, fill, and smoother. But this is gonna take a toll on your machine and make things very choppy unless you have a really nice graphics card. So I just keep these on project settings and do optical flow, and it's normally good enough. So here we have a nice shot of the chair, some hair clipper sound effects. You'll notice that I cut directly to the 808 kick drum in that part. It's a little in your face, it's a little ham-fisted, but it is what it is. That's how I got those clips to fit in there, and I'm happy with the way it came out. So most of this was shot on the 24mm G Master lens. There are a few 65mm shots like this one here, but most of the shots in this video are the 24mm. I'm gonna save the 65mm shots for a later video. And by the way, the 24mm G Master lens is one of my favorite lenses in existence. Like, it is perfect in every possible way, and it's totally worth the money. Okay, so the halation here is from the Moment Cinebloom filter. It's the 20% version, but if I had my pick of the litter, I would definitely go with the Tiffin Black Pro Mist. I think it just has a more subtle look, and I just really like that one compared to this one. This one is a little too much in my opinion, unless you're really going for a dreamy look. That's a reverse shot, so that's at minus 40% for that shot, and it's shot in 60 FPS. I just thought it looked cool having his hair like jump up to his head as opposed to the other way around. This is again that Night font, and I really like that font. It's like a serif font, and it seems like serif fonts are everywhere nowadays. Again, the Moment Cinebloom filter. That also softens up your skin tones, that Cinebloom filter, but it goes a little too hard in my opinion in a lot of situations. Some sound design down here, that's just like a swoosh noise and then a glitch when it like fades out there, and this is just an overlay in the background just to give it some framing, and obviously their logo, their name, and their social media down here, and that's the whole video. As for the color grading, I didn't do anything too crazy. This is what it looked like beforehand, and this is what I had afterwards. Basically, it's just a white balance node, so I just made sure that it was a little bit warmer than normal, and the exposure, I just pulled the whites back a little bit to give the skin a little bit more contrast. Log seems to not have a lot of contrast in the highlights. Like, if I just leave it flat, it seems to just want the skin tones to be all one white color, and I don't really like that. So I find myself doing this a lot when there's skin tones involved. The next is a color space transform, and that just transforms log to normal Rec 709 footage through something like a LUT, but not really. And then we have our look, which is just, I pulled the shadows down to the greens, and then I pulled the gamma up to the reddish magenta-ish tone. And then on the log wheels, I pulled the shadows back to the reds to offset the thing I did over on the lift, just so that you get your black point back a little bit. If I didn't do this, it would look more like that with a real teal bottom end. So by pulling that up to where it was, you kind of get those blacks back, and then you can use the range to make a real micro adjustment to how much teal you want in the shadows. I just really like that trick. And then for the skin, I just went to the hue versus saturation and brought the reds up just to give her skin a little bit of pop. And then for the luminance, I did the exact same thing just to brighten her skin up a little bit. And this is the exact same color grade I used for literally the entire video. I just made some micro adjustments to the exposure and white balance for most other clips. Other than that, that's pretty much the whole workflow for this video. Anyway, guys, that's been SJ Cinematics episode 3, and I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to you, the viewer. I'm coming up on 1,000 subscribers, and I'm super appreciative of that. I've also never seen a negative comment on this channel. I think there's been like 2 that were like semi-negative, but I've never gotten an out-and-out aggressive comment from anybody. So just thank you. It's a really positive vibe on this channel, and I really appreciate it. And that's all I got. If you got something out of this, consider going down and hitting the like and the sub button. It means the world to content creators like me. Thank you for joining me on another episode of SJ Cinematics, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.